I'm going to give some alarming findings that are really going to shock you to your core here, that the Middle Eastern royal family of Qatar now owns more of London than King Charles and the Crown does. And of course, you immediately think of Buckingham Palace, Kensington Palace, or St. James Palace, essentially the icons of British royalty. However, the royal family of Qatar has quietly expanded its own real estate empire inside of London, extending beyond the British monarchy themselves. Northwest Mayfair, a busy and upscale neighborhood in Westminster, London, has been nicknamed Little Doha, which Doha is the capital city in Qatar. So the upscale neighborhood of Westminster is now referred to as Little Qatar. It is estimated that a quarter of properties in Westminster are buildings that are owned by the Al Thani family, Qatar's royal family headed by the family's patriarch, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, who's hit a net worth of $2.4 billion as a family. The family also owns the most expensive private dwelling in all of Britain, a massive 44,000 square foot castle that was valued at $400 million, that even the late Queen Elizabeth made a comment at one point saying that the house made the Buckingham Palace, quote, look rather dull. To put that in comparison, the average home in America is roughly 2,600 square feet. The Shard Building, which is the tallest building in all of Europe outside of Russia, is a colossal 95-foot floor skyscraper that is a mixed use, but to note, is 95% owned by the Qatari DR Real Estate Investment Company, which was established in 2005 by the Qatar Investment Authority, which is the sovereign wealth fund of the state of Qatar, which is headquartered in none other than Doha. The state of Qatar also owns 20% of Heathrow Airport, which services over 84 million travelers a year, which is England's largest airport that a foreign country owns 20% of. I mean, imagine Saudi Arabia or Turkey owning a portion of Newark Airport or JFK or Atlanta's airport. I mean, imagine that. Now, altogether, Qatar's family, their royal family, owns about 1.8 million square feet of real estate in London. But that isn't even like the most shocking part here, because the largest property owners in London aren't British residents, nor is it the Qatar royal family. But people from India are the largest single group of property owners in London, far surpassing British's own native residents. The city's economic market have made it a haven for wealthy Indian investors to buy property, in which they then, in portion, use to rent those apartments that they buy to then British residents. And people really don't get this point either. They really don't. The internationalizing of cities and the upscale to which the concept operates, which is the biggest cause of the hiking of real estate prices in any city across the world, especially in the United States and especially in London. So, this is the worst part when you internationalize a city. Let's take a couple named Sally and Joe, for example. Lives in Miami, looking to move out of their rental and buy an apartment together. Nothing crazy, just a small one bedroom where they can pool their savings together to stop paying for rent and finally create some equity for themselves, really. They now have to not only compete with the people in their city, like similar couples like them looking to also buy, or the retirees looking to buy and move, but also have to compete with those people looking to move to Miami from other states around the country, which starts to up the competition for home buying, which obviously ups the prices of homes. But then they also now have to compete with extremely rich foreign investors overseas, which include the royal families of countries who have an unlimited amount of cash, who are obviously going to squash Sally, who is like an insurance agent, and Joe, who works as like an assistant loan processor or something. You know, you're talking working 2 normal jobs trying to pool your money together. When governments allow this, like they do in London and like they do generally over here in the United States, when they allow this insane competition that their own citizens have to compete with on the international scale, you know, when you realize when you go to look for an apartment or a home anywhere in the United States, you're competing against the United States and citizens from South America, from Europe, from China, all over Asia, really. You end up getting these crazy costs that only benefit more wealthy people who are selling their properties, as well as the rich foreign buyer who can afford to pay the high price tag for a property that they will then use that very apartment to rent out to Joe and Sally when Joe and Sally realize they can't afford a property on their own and will need to rent for another year and save up more. And they'll end up renting the very same apartment they should have been able to afford themselves, and they'll be paying that rent to a foreign-based landlord, which is becoming more and more common, especially over in London, who, you know, to be honest, these foreign buyers really have, you know, they don't have really much of a concern about the country that they're buying in anyway. You know, it's not their home turf. It's a strictly financial transaction, a financial investment. Nothing more than that. They could care less, typically, about what happens in that country. They have no really true emotional or patriotic investment at all. And the countries that are allowing this atrocity to happen, I mean, England for sure. I look down in Argentina, and you might as well call Argentina Europe at this point. And it's only obviously getting worse here, city by city in the United States, which really is financial treason by a government towards your own citizens.